And any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov, or you can call 860-258-7682, and you will be provided with a link to attend the Zoom remote meeting and instructions on how you will participate, or a phone number, and you can call in. So moving on to budget review, we have our first presentation from the library.
Sorry, still.
I think
there you are. I didn't see your name.
I think we have somebody in public comment there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I did know that. Ms. Hogan, if I can just put you on pause for one moment. We do have Ed Ciccarello. And I'm sorry, I did know that, and I just temporarily forgot. So Mr. Ciccarello, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Ed Ciccarello, 40 Riverview Road, Rocky Hill. I want to encourage you tonight to use the Plan of Conservation and Development to guide your decisions as you do the hard work of analyzing our town budget. I bring up the Plan of Conservation and Development tonight because I did not hear any reference to that document at the last town council meeting when we were discussing the state greenway nomination. The Plan of Conservation and Development is our town's guiding document, which can direct us into a promising future if implemented. Budget decisions should be influenced by this Plan of Conservation and Development. Here are a few items from the Plan of Conservation and Development that are important to our Walk Bike Rocky Hill group. Plan of Conservation and Development encourages us to reestablish a connection between the community and the Connecticut River by preserving public access and open space along and near the riverfront. The Plan of Conservation and Development encourages Rocky Hill to create an open space system to interconnect open space areas into an overall system, an integrated green belt, establish a signage program, and community gateway features. The Plan of Conservation and Development encourages Rocky Hill to establish and maintain a pedestrian master plan, expand the pedestrian network in Rocky Hill, build new sidewalk connections, and maintain and/or expand funding for sidewalk expansion. Lastly, the Plan of Conservation and Development also encourages Rocky Hill to establish and maintain a bicycle master plan by creating a bicycle committee, identifying safe, convenient, comfortable, and secure bicycle riding environments, establishing bike lanes in and around the town center. Each budget season gives us a fresh start to pursue new opportunities. We want to see Rocky Hill become a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly town. So please use our Plan of Conservation and Development in your decision-making. It will, for sure, make Rocky Hill a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, we are ready for you and your library presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Mary Hogan, and with me is Mike Murphy behind, 6 feet behind me, with his mask on. And I just wanted to start off by thanking Charles Brown at the Health District, John Mayer. We had great guidance this past year on how to keep people safe, how to keep the people who came in safe, how to keep the library safe. We were open most of the year of this fiscal year. We were open for the public in July, and we stayed open, and we were all safe, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything right now, but what we also, I need to thank a big shout out to the staff, because they pivoted last March. Everybody just pivoted. We went online. We started doing anything, looking at everything that we did in person and moving it to a virtual platform. We also were able to help people as they moved to a virtual platform, and we helped over 800 people either like learn Zoom to do job interviews or talk to their grandchildren. So we learned a lot this past year, and some of it we're not going to lose, because I think it's the new way. And this budget, as you look, it's mostly the same as for the last 10 years. There's just a few tweaks. And it's based on really looking at things that we can do safer and processes and procedures that we looked at over the past year. And so some of that reflects some upgrades, some technology innovation, and we were able to sort of maintain most of the budget because this is what we feel next year is a rebuilding year for when people will slowly start to come in more. We're already seeing a few more people, but we also think it's going to be always hybrid. There's always going to be some people that want to just Zoom with us to do a technology class. So we think we're going to be doing like 3 phases. There'll be the people who'll still stay technology. We'll be doing hybrid, and then we'll slowly introduce in person, though not until a little bit longer of programs. I mean, we encourage people to come in for our dash in, dash out service and our computer appointments. But it's kind of exciting, some of the technology, because this past year let us meet authors that we never would have been able to get to Rocky Hill. And so we see that as part of the future, is that we can Zoom with them, have a group in the room with us, and also have people from home. So I think it was a learning year, and I really have to thank the staff for everything that they did to get us to this point. So I'm happy to answer any particular questions. This is 1% of about 1% of the whole town budget. So but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so we can just sort of, we don't have to be as formal with me calling out everyone. So if you would like to ask Mary a question.
I had a question. Thanks, Mary. The other equipment line, 5749, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because it was 0, then I was projected spending of 14,000, requesting 11,000. Evidently, it pertains to a smart return bin electronic system. Can you just talk about what that is and what that's doing?
Sure.
Mary, before you get going, what it was is that when we had the budget session with Mary and she started talking about this return system, we had extra money in the full-time line due to retirements and vacancies and so on. So to get a jump start on it, we did a transfer that's not reflected on the budget page, transferring the $14,000 from full-time down to that other equipment line. So that was just an accounting entry agreed upon between Mary and myself, saying that we can do it, and she felt comfortable budget-wise this year. But she can better explain the purpose of the return bin system.
Sure. So about 12 years ago, in the capital improvements was $150,000 for what's called RFID, radio frequency tags, which we just kept getting kicked down the road, which is probably a good thing because the prices are a lot lower now. And we feel with this year's budget and a little bit of next year's budget. And it's really what made us want to go this way is that we started looking at how we touch something and then we turn around and hand it to a person. And so it's really moving towards a touchless, it's not a personless, but a touchless system where you will be able to, right now you have to scan each book, and now you can scan several books at a time. So there's really, as part of our whole cleaning and sanitation of trying to streamline and not do as much touching. But this will also help us with inventory and just the whole keeping track of all the books of when they come in and when they go out. But it's really, this budget is no more, I won't be going over on this year's budget, and next year's it's just a little bit, but it's also reflected in the some savings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I was just gonna congratulate you, Mary. This is Pankaj here, if you can find me on the screen. But I just want to congratulate you for a great job last year among several of the town departments who did a great job. Like, I think you did a great public service for the town, and I just want to congratulate you on that. From a personal standpoint, I have a question for you about the future of the library in terms of like the mix of like books, which I love, printed books, and then the audio versus the electronic, right? Which I consume a lot as well at this point in my life, because I just don't have time to like read a lot paper books. So audio books, what is the in context of like the library of the future, how do audio books, electronic books fit into that paradigm? And also from a cost perspective, audio and electronic book, how do they like stack up against like printed book?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And from what we're talking with the publishers, like some of the printed books are not going to go away. That some people just always want to feel. So we're ending up buying paper books, and then we do have to buy audio books, books on CDs. I mean, and my staff will laugh because I say they're going to go away in about 5 years because we're finding people don't even have a CD player in their car. But we're moving towards the downloadable, which we are part of a consortium, and we have about 10,000 audiobooks, and we're keep increasing that. But they're a lot more expensive. They're about 4 times as more expensive than the CD. But the other thing is each publisher has a different way, and so some of them we can only lease and get for 2 years, and then we have to buy another 2 years. So it's a real juggling among all of us librarians in the consortium to try to make sure that we can get the right balance. So it's definitely more expensive, but on the other hand, it's less physical work with it. We no longer have to stamp it, process it, check it in, check it out. It just checks out. So I think the future will be this hybrid. Again, I use that word. There'll still be things that people need to see, but there's also going to be things that are going to be born digital. And we are part of a great consortium. And so we're able to offer a lot more than just Rocky Hill because we're sharing.
Absolutely. And I love that. Like I feel that opportunity as well, like, just getting it from another library in the state, like,
Yeah.
So again, thank you very much. Thanks
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the library budget?
Yeah, I had a question about some of the services. It's kind of a follow-up to the last one. We had been using Hoopla. Now I think we're using Libby. And I guess there's kind of a push and pull there because the more people use it, which is great, the more it winds up costing. Do we think that, that line item is pretty solid? And also going back to the consortium piece, if we don't have a book, a physical book, you can order it from, West Hartford, and it will show up, and then we can return it, and then it goes back to, its home once we're done with it. Do we think that's going to happen with digital at some point too?
It does. It does right now. That Overdrive is the name of the system, and Libby is the app. There's also an Overdrive app. So of course they never make things easy to explain. Yeah. Hoopla is a competitor. I'll talk about that in a minute. But Overdrive, we share 30,000 items among 40 libraries. We're part of a consortium. Libraries have been part of this consortium for about 35 years. So what you're actually accessing anything that the whole consortium can see. But if there's a book like that has a lot of holds on it, we can add extra copies for Rocky Hill residents. So we are it is sharing. West Hartford buys a book and they put it towards the whole consortium and you get access to it. So we are spending more of our money towards electronic, but it's somewhat of a good investment because in some ways, because we're trying to buy the things that we can have. It's called one copy, one user. Now, Hoopla is a competitor. Hoopla was great a couple of years ago when a couple hundred people used it, but for Hoopla, we pay for every single checkout. So it's between 99 cents and $3.99, and it goes away. I mean, so once you watch something, it's not part, if somebody else checks it out, we have to pay another $3.99. And it just wasn't sustainable. I mean, if I could have $2,000 a month or $24,000 to spend on Hoopla, I think it would make everyone happy, or we could meet the needs. But instead, we're taking a lot less, but moving it into this Overdrive where 20 people can use the same book, not at the same time, but they can have the same book. So I don't know. It keeps changing, this world of publishing, and even the publishers don't really know what they want as a rule. But that's the difference between Hoopla and Overdrive, and we are moving more towards like trying to purchase and trying to, we call it a turnover rate, get the most people using it. So
another question is kind of like that. We used to have like it was either LinkedIn Learning or Lynda, and then I think that became cost prohibitive. But
it did. Also, we were concerned about the privacy. Libraries are all about privacy and protecting your library card holder and what you're checking out, what you're using. And LinkedIn Learning did not meet the privacy what we felt we wanted to say that we can offer. So, but it's also a cost thing.
But for those folks who may be still stuck at home trying to learn new skills, we do have some of those available as well and through the town site. Is that correct?
I don't know about the town site, but we have Universal Class, which has over 500 classes. We also have Mike and some other people that we offer the technology classes, and then we get them started. So if they're doing Excel, we'll do the intro, and then we can get them all these other classes that they can then move forward on. So is that right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last note I have was just, so if there's a note here on cultural programs, where of course we're still not having a community events quite yet, but when we think about down the road, we'll have the community center opening up this year. Are you thinking maybe, I guess, with an idea of next year's budget, how we might be able to leverage the new uses in the community center for library programming, or you think it'll still mostly be within the library for now?
Oh, no, absolutely. Melissa, Craig and I have been working for the last several months on coordinating programming. The library, we're personally excited about having a bigger space to offer some of our programs and arts and crafts and things like that. So it's going to be coordinated offering. I mean, there'll still be some things that we'll have like story times and things like that at the library, but it's very much coordinated offerings. But that cultural program has been the same for the several years. We also have the Friends of the Library, and they raise and give us most of our programming money. So we've spent a lot more of their programming money this past year because we were doing take and make kits. We were accessing different programs. So this one just covers the book discussions and a couple of other little minor things that we have, but we leverage our Friends of the Library money, and we've spent it this past year and we'll continue to spend it next year too. We're just hoping they can have their book sales sometime soon so we can have them raise money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, well, Mary, I just want to congratulate you. It's been a ridiculously difficult year with so many challenges, and I'm so impressed by how you bring it all together, continue to offer the same services that you've always done, and somehow found new things to incorporate into your programming. It's really an impressive job. I don't think many folks, including myself, until I was in this position, realized what it is that you guys do at the library. And it really is impressive, your connection with other towns and all that you're doing there throughout COVID. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, folks, I think we can move on from library and we can turn the page now to facilities.
Hi, everyone. This is Phil Sear, Facilities Director for the town of Rocky Hill. I want to start off by thanking my staff, both custodians and the facility staff, through this COVID year, and I'm sure you're going to be hearing this throughout the night as far as how we adapted, how we had to increase our cleaning. The guys stepped up. Great team to have. They worked hard trying to keep our facilities clean, the departments clean, and people safe. So a big shout out to them. And then to my facilities people, the same thing. Through COVID, we still did tours of our buildings because it was winter time when it started, the shutdown started. We did find things that we prevented, costly replacements and such. So again, a shout out to them too. The facilities budget kept it fairly flat. We do have increases in some of the line items, but minimal. And then I will present it to you guys for questions.
So Phil, to clarify, we're working on first the building maintenance, and then we have town custodial services, right? So those are both under your direction?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll open it up.
Phil, the question I have for you is, I I don't remember the name of the program, but are you still using that software that
Yes,
kind
facilities.
of, yeah, yep.
So yes, we have Maintenance Edge, which is our work order program and preventive maintenance work order program. There's 4 modules. One of them, again, is Maintenance Edge. The other one is Capital Forecast. That's information based on the engineering report we had a few years back, and it has all our equipment listed in data form, so we can revert to if there's a breakdown. Instead of going out there, we could actually bring it up and see what the components are, and then maybe bring parts with us, that sort of thing. Also, it has a CIP plan of a 30-year forecast, and every October, November, we tour all our buildings based on those engineering books. They're like our Bible. We inspect and prioritize what needs to be changed out and what doesn't. It's a great format, great tool. The other part, the other 2 modules, one is a utility bill population migration. What that does is we hand them all our utility bills, the Eversource, MDC, and the gas. But all the usages and costs in data form, so we can extract and make reports and follow trends.
Mimi, did I hear your voice?
Yeah, yes. I was just it's delightful to see that there's a $20,000 drop in light and power. Is that new contract, new supplier? How did you guys manage that one?
I'll have to revert that to John or Mona.
It's good news anyway.
It is. Did you want me, John, or do you want to take it? So we did enter in a contract through CROG for 4 of our major accounts, being the firehouse, the town hall, and this building. So that's giving us a lower rate for supplier. So those are our 4 major users. So our goal is that should be a savings in that area. So those are our 4 larger accounts that we're looking at, and that came in with a group bid rate of 7.23 cents. So we're expecting a decrease in that line.
Good job.
And if I can also add, and it's a tidbit, it's low-hanging fruit type of scenario, but seasonal, we look at all of our equipment and how they run, when they run, time on and time off, and make adjustments throughout the course of that season. We also do what I call a midnight run. We actually would go through our buildings once a year at night, in the middle of the night, for eyes and ears. We go and we see and try to hear what's on, investigate why it should be on, why if it should be on, shouldn't be on, and then list it, and then take the initiative to either shut them down or reprogram them and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Mona, when did we join the CROG plan?
We actually put our information in several months ago, but we got the most recent award, and it'll take effect in May. So we haven't seen our first bill to get the effect, but we're planning on at least to see some impact in a savings for a full year of usage for next year's budget.
So that's an estimated 20?
Yes, it is.
And Mona, along those lines, and I think it's great we're looking at a reduction, but we're going to be opening our new community senior center. Is that factored into this?
Yes, it is. Yes,
So
it is.
we're adding 15,000 square feet, and we're still going to have a $20,000 reduction.
We had to make an estimate for that, so
That's
it
great.
is an estimate.
Okay, so at least you calculated it in, so.
Correct.
I just a couple questions along the same line, maybe Mona or not sure, but I know we're replacing a generator with a gas-based generator, so I guess that would help our fuel costs a little bit too. I don't know if that's significant to really make a dent in this, but does that also be savings too, Phil?
It would be savings on our diesel side.
Yeah.
Most definitely. The gas will go up, but again, you know, in the overall scenario, again, that seasonally we check all our equipment to see what savings we can by time. So there's going to be a little bit of an increase of gas, but not much, because the generator doesn't run 24/7. It runs in an emergency situation.
And then the other question on the next slide, heating fuel. Through March, we spent 61,000 and we're projected to spend 87, but with April, May, and June being typically warmer months, not much heating fuel, do you think we'll be under budget in the current fiscal year on that line item?
Again, that's probably a Mona question.
Well,
Another estimated question,
yeah,
assuming that, Phil, what about air conditioning? Does that run off of gas or heat, gas or
Electricity.
So there's probably a chance we could have a good savings if we have weather like we did past couple days, not like today.
I mean, at this time of year, at nighttime, we still potentially could have, you know, heat come on, not for long periods. So yes, come May, June, gas will virtually be almost at a standstill per se.
Good, thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Well, Phil, again, we want to congratulate you because you did an outstanding job through COVID, and I can't imagine what it must have been like. But we appreciate all of your hard work, and thank you for your presentation.
Mayor, before we jump, are we also going to discuss custodial services, or are we doing that?
Right, I think she moved the page already, Alan, so we're not going to talk.
Yeah,
They're on different pages, John.
That means we're all set.
Okay, we're gonna turn the page. And Phil, are you going to present now on the facility side?
Yes.
Of the custodian?
The custodian.
So everybody should be on page 84, right, Phil?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
84 and 85.
84, 85. So the custodial budget maintained flat, except for adding a full-time position. With 15,000 square feet to come online, there's a lot of space, especially floor space, vinyl flooring and tile flooring. Tile flooring is the most challenging to keep clean at all times, but it's that new position will be responsible for breakdown of days activities and setup of evening activities. This is daily now. Then breakdown of those evening activities and setup of the next day's activities for seniors. And then of course their cleaning responsibilities. There's 7 bathrooms totaled. 5 are new, 2 are as existing in the renovated part of the building, for a total of 7. So there's 4 gang bathrooms, 3 small bathrooms, a shower stall in one of those bathrooms. So there's quite a bit of space, if you will, to be cleaned. So we're not going to be able to do it any other way. We just need that body.
When is that person set to start at the beginning of the year, or are they going to come online in January? It'll be a little while before the center is operational.
So they're going to be turning the building over, as far as I know right now, in the middle of July, end of July. So the 1st of July is when the budget takes effect. So I wanted to hire at that point, train them, okay, while the building is empty, per se, but with furniture, get them, a feel of what we need them to do based on how my custodians now work. I have a great person in mind to train this individual, and it'll be this, and whoever does get this position will do well.
I just have a question. This may be more a John Mayer question. Is the town plan on charging like a custodial fee for private groups that might be using the facility, especially after hours, if somebody wanted to rent the hall for, a reception of some kind? Is that going to be something that's going to be part of the plan?
Down the road, discussions will be made if the town wants to lease out some of its facilities to outside groups. If they did, they would have qualify that. They would have to bring in their own food and stuff like that. But we would come up with a hourly rate to charge the people that are, or the group that is renting out that space, and included in there would be the cost to have a custodian on duty during the time period of the function. So yes, it would be built into the fee that would be charged if we move forward with that concept of leasing out some of the activity rooms to the public.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Phil, if I could pose a question. In the budget summary, there's a note about adding the one full-time custodian. And it says one custodian with food service certification for the Senior Center, Community Center, lunch program, and campus town building needs. And I know we used to have this individual provide the senior lunches. Are we going back to that program? Will we bringing that back in-house?
No. The one that you're thinking about was he used to prepare food. Okay. No, we would still consider bringing the food in from outside, but he would be responsible for assisting in the serving of the food.
Oh, so just a food server, not somebody cooking.
Yeah, not any preparing.
He would either pick up the food, bring it to the location, or we'd have it delivered. But he would accept it, put it out with all the utensils, get the plates and forks, knives, and spoons out there. So he would set it up, help serve with the senior staff, and then do the cleanup. He would wrap all the food back in, and put it all away, clean the kitchen afterwards. That's just a small portion of his day.
Right. I was just curious because we used to have a meal prepared in-house, and
right,
maybe that was saying we were going back to it.
No. No, we're not. No.
All right. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thinking of changing careers, Alan? Put a chef's hat on?
People would not be happy. Burgers and hot dogs daily, that would be it.
You want to save money, we'll bring you in, Alan.
John, out of curiosity, how much does this lunch cost us? The town?
We're sort of on custodial services, and so we're not really prepared to answer that. It's that's in human services and senior services. We haven't served a meal since we closed the community center down for a while. So I can't even think of something off the top of my head without misleading you.
All right, no
Maybe
problem.
a few dollars.
I'll keep that question for later.
Yeah, take a post amount package and write it down there and put it on that bookcase behind you.
My bookcase will be filled with questions then.
You can send yourself an email.
Okay. Any more questions about town custodial service?
Just a quick clarified question, Phil. This may be mutually exclusive, but looking at the overtime and with the full-time person coming in for, is that full-time person purely dedicated for that, or is he doing that person doing anything else?
the full-time new position.
New position.
It'll be strictly for the 15,000 square feet.
Purely that. Okay.
Yes. Well, and to add, it's this person's going to be responsible for the keeping the a new shell pristine. There's also going to be the original renovated portion was over 11,000 square feet. We had before it closed. Okay, we had 2 part-timers. Those 2 part-timers are coming back to take care of that particular shell, which is 11,000 square feet. The additional shell is the 15,000 square feet, and that's going to be for that one position.
Okay. I'm just trying to assess to see if that 3,000 overtime.
That 3,000, what I did was there's 5 full-time now. The 6 would be the new position. I divided that and then came up with a $3,000 increase to the overtime budget.
And that relates, beside cleaning the buildings and so on, the snow removal of the town campus too, right, Phil?
Yes.
That's a big chunk of the overtime problem.
I apologize. Yes. As far as the overtime and where it goes, it's mostly for winter use. Saturday, community center use. This year, more than last year and previous years, is the flags at half staff. When it's called for after hours, it's a call in for one of my custodians to come in to put it in that position. So there was an increase in that this year, but primarily though, the overtime budget is for snow removal during the winter.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, wonderful. Thank you again, Phil.
Thank you.
We will now turn the page to community development, and we have the town planner, and that will be on page 32 and 33.
Madam Mayor, can I say a few words beforehand?
Yeah, of course you may.
Hi. Just wanted to go through the department. I have all of the department heads here to answer any particular questions. Steve Sopolak, Joe Lantini, Mike Violet, and who else? I missed one.
Kim.
Steve Sopolak and Kim.
Kim.
So I wanted to just point out, as Phil had said, it was a COVID challenge year, and the staff rose to the occasion. For instance, Mike Violet, the building official, continued to provide the service even though the town hall was shut down and we were working from home. He used some creativity in making sure that he could inspect the work that continued throughout the whole pandemic, using FaceTime photos and documenting everything that was done to make sure it was inspected properly. So he did yeoman's work. Same thing with Joe Lentini, the highway superintendent. He had to make sure that the crew was safe, because if that spread in our highway department, we would have been crippled. We wouldn't have been able to provide the snow removal and ice removal. So he, again, took the bull by the horns, made sure sanitary wipes and all kinds of things were provided to keep the crew safe. So he did an excellent job. I just wanted to recognize them beforehand, before we get going. So in general, we followed John Muir's guidance on this budget and tried to keep it a maintenance type budget, just not doing increases unless we had to for something new. And Kim has one of those particular items. So the other big changes, as has been pointed out before, is the contractual obligations we have with the union for personnel items. Those always go up. So I'll turn it over to Kim on page 32. If you had any questions. Thank you.
Well, the increase relates to that consultant line. Is that for
Yes.
housing, Kim?
Yes,
Yes, the municipalities in the state of Connecticut under statute 830J, as in Jim, are required to prepare an affordable housing land use plan. And we are mandated to have that plan done before July 1 of 2022. And I consulted with three individuals from three consulting firms with respect to cost estimates for such a plan, which basically ranged from 15,000 up to 35,000. When I talked with these individuals, they basically stated a more realistic number would be 20,000. So that is what we put in the budget. It is a mandate under state law. So that is why it is in the budget. We typically don't have something like this in the budget unless we're doing a plan of conservation and development or zoning regulation updates.
Kim, could you just, because we have such a big number there, could you just kind of at a real high level explain what the requirement is, what the consultant, I'm not familiar with what we're required to do.
Okay, what the town is required to do is to assess our housing stock that we have, realize that we do have to comply with the Fair Housing Act and provide housing opportunities for all. That means not only town residents, as well as future residents for the town of Rocky Hill. There was something that was created years ago in 1989, the Fair Housing Compact, through the regional planning agencies, where municipalities the goal was 10% of your units to be classified as affordable units. That's where families spend no more than 30% of their income and make no more than 80% of median income on housing. Rocky Hill currently is nowhere near that 10% of their units. Last report, we were at 5.44%. Any of the municipalities at 10%, they do not have to put forth a affordable housing plan under state statute. Rocky Hill does. The state legislature, I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on at the state level, but the state legislature has several bills before them now on the creation of affordable housing for municipalities, where they will actually mandate to towns, you must create affordable housing and you must do it in certain ways. What this plan hopes to do is to assess our housing stock, find out with specificity the types of units we have, the types of units we need, and to give us some guidance as far as how we can better integrate affordable housing into our community. Affordable housing oftentimes is thought of as the projects from days gone by. That is not the case. Affordable housing is for the teachers in town. It's for the young folks getting out of college. It's for the volunteer firemen. And what we're trying to do is, one, abide by state law and comply with the Fair Housing Act.
Has there been a study done like this before?
Many municipalities have done this.
Have you done it?
The town of Rocky Hill has not undertaken such a study before, no.
And Kim, do we think that there's some municipalities, I think, that are looking at doing more accessory dwelling units, things like adding in or making it, I guess, opening up a little more, doing 2 and 3 unit developments instead of single houses, or building out in-law apartments, things like that. Is that so? And that would be in lieu of making, new. It opens up market rate housing or more affordable housing options without having to build new complexes. Or at least that's one of the pros. Is that something that we potentially would take a look at in our zoning regs, or is that something that might fall under this affordable housing, I guess, effort, things that they're looking to encourage?
Well, and you mentioned accessory apartments. That's something that the state legislature is looking at, making it a process where there really is no approval process. They would be allowed as of right. In the past, the town allowed accessory apartments through a special hearing process, which required a public hearing. We do not do that anymore. We do that with staff approval. If the state legislature passes this law, accessory apartments would be allowed as of right. That wouldn't even need staff approval. They're also looking at something called like middle housing, where you would do infill units of, say, 2 to 3 units, maybe along even Celestine Highway, to create a mixed use area. Some of those units would be obviously for people of lesser incomes, once again, making 80% of the median income for the area. They're also looking at, in the study, we would have to look at, while we do have a vast number of apartment complexes in town, are they affordable? Are the rents reasonable? Do we have reasonably priced or affordably priced condominiums in town? So, I mean, they have to look at our housing stock in the region also. The goal here is to spread out the affordable housing throughout the state, not have all the affordable housing congregated in your inner cities, Bridgeport, New Britain, Hartford, New Haven, but to spread out affordable housing throughout the state of Connecticut.
And under the mandate, is this a one-time project, or do we have to do this on every couple of years?
The state statute has the town reviewing, possibly amending and or rewriting, depending on how the town feels, every 5 years. Once it's done, that should be something that the town can do on their own.
Any questions or comments? And Kim, will that conclude your presentation?
Yes, the only other increase is contractual obligations under union contracts.
Okay. Well, we want to definitely thank you too. I know that you had to jump through a lot of hoops very, very quickly when we went into lockdown in order to accommodate businesses and restaurants and figure out how they could safely open up outdoors and all of those other components. And that was a huge undertaking. And I know that the business community is very grateful for that. I hear it frequently, especially from our restaurant folks. So thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you. I just want to add that, thank you very much, that the governor's orders did extend outdoor dining, those that were approved under executive orders, through March of next year.
That's great. Good news. All right, well, thank you. And now let's turn the page to page 54 and 55 to talk about building. Hi.
Hi. Problems here. Okay. Hi. Well, the budget pretty much stayed the same as last year, with the exception of some increases in the salaries. I did reallocate some of the funds a little bit, but kept the budget, the funds, the pretty much the same. I took some money out of training and put it into uniforms because I wanted to purchase some shirts and jackets with the town logo on them, just to be easily identified, especially with all the break-ins and everything that's been happening. You know, a lot of elderly people are concerned. So it's nice to be identified, and then also on emergency calls in the middle of the night. But other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments of Mike? Well, I will comment that that's a very creative approach. So thanks for doing that. It makes a lot of sense. All right, well, I guess we have no questions or comments. That's a good thing. So
Okay.
thank you. Thanks for everything that you're doing. We really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Okay. Let's see, I have to get back on my cell phone. And we will move now to page 62 and 63, engineering.
All right, good evening. As you know, last year, this budget was actually cut quite a bit and basically held it flat since last year. As everybody's saying, contractual obligations, but I believe ours may go down due to 2 retirements. And the people, if their positions are filled, won't be at the same salaries. So that should go down. And the other item that you'll notice, this was a big cut last year, was the fees and markings. That's for the line striping. And every year it's skyrocketing. To do the whole town, pavement markings, parking lots, the roads, it's close to $60,000 now. So last year it was cut down to 24.5, and we only did the critical areas around the schools, crosswalks, stop bars in the center lines. So parking lots weren't done, edge lines weren't done. So we still have some money left over. We'll do as much as we can, and then hopefully with the remainder, if we get it here, move forward and try and get the rest of the town.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Steve?
Mayor, I have a more of a comment / question for Steve. Steve, not directly derived by your budget, but the towns are going to be receiving money through the American Rescue Plan. Engineering, of course, is involved with some of our infrastructure. So, and I know it's too early to know exactly what we're allowed to use those funds for, but have you started gathering thoughts for potential uses that may help us utilize those funds for programs that may take things out of the budget in future years?
Again, as you said, we don't know what it's going to be useful for. I do have a bridge that needs to be replaced. It's actually, I think it's 2 or 3 pipes. It's out in the lakes area, Lake Road, Park Road. That's probably $1 million plus project to replace that. So that would be huge.
Okay. And that was water and sewer, you said somewhere, and right? Those are the
water. Yeah, no, water and sewer is actually MDC.
No, I think those are the 2 allowed uses they're saying with the fund.
Then we're out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll swing it, but
yeah,
those are ideas where I guess we're looking for is how do we potentially use these funds? I mean, I know it's early in the conversation, but our budget's coming up and we're looking for guidance.
I think once we find out what we can use it for, we'll find a place to spend it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, obviously the idea is to spend it in ways that'll help reduce
Of course.
the burden on taxpayers in the future.
Yeah, of course.
For the line striping that you mentioned, can any of that work be done? I mean, you talked about doing the whole town or half a town, I guess. What about with the road referendum funds? Is that something that can be paid from that, or as part of those projects, restripe those areas once you put in the new roads?
Yeah. When we do the roads, if it's associated with the road paving, reconstruction, whatever process we're doing, that's how we're paying for that pavement marking. But I can't do the whole town with that. That's not the way the referendum was written.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Steve, for everything that you're doing. I know you are super busy doing roads and all things, and we appreciate everything and your presentation tonight.
You're welcome.
Okay. So let's move on and turn the page to Public Works. And we will begin with the town garage, which is on pages 58 and 59.
Hi, everybody. Joe Lentini, Field Operations Highway Superintendent.
Hi.
We want to first thank the highway crew, tremendous, especially during these tough times this past year.
Joe, you got to take that background down.
No, that's perfect background.
That's what I figured.
No one's listening to you, Joe. They're all upset now.
Listen, my boss is
I'm
still here
listening,
till
Joe.
9.
Joe, she's listening. You got the mayor on her side.
My phone's been going off the hook here with some comments. It's crazy, but no, again, I want to thank the highway guys. I mean, the work they do is tremendous. I mean, they in the roads and in the streets and everywhere they work as if they were doing their own property. It's tremendous. They do a phenomenal job. And town garage, fleet guys, same thing. Very personal, do a wonderful job. No question. I got great guys down at the garage. The town garage, a couple changes. One was we added for service contracts for all the work that all the services that get maintained down there, the fuel pumps, the water separators, and all the inspections that we need. We had to add $10,000, but that $10,000 we basically took it from equipment repair. We lowered the equipment repair down to $30,000. So the only really change is we added the service contracts, but the money basically stayed the same, and contractually, obviously raises and stuff like that. You know, we made the changes for that, but other than that, town garage is maintained the same.
About the fuel, Joe.
Yeah, fuel. Well, you want to talk about that?
Well, last year we tried to get a good quantity that we would need to apply towards the actual cost. And as you know, the cost fluctuates probably daily, right, Joe? And
yeah.
So at this point, based upon usage from last year, we're projecting that we're going to need more money, $25,000 more to cover it. And at the pump, you can see the price is going up too. So it kind of reflects more of the actual usage. We have software, we can figure out exactly how many gallons of fuel we're using. So we have to increase that, otherwise we'll be in a hole again. Last year, we cut the budget $5,000 for that, hoping for the best. And of course, with the number of storms and everything else we had, it's out of control. We can't figure out when the storms are coming and how much fuel we're going to use. So this is our best estimate.
Thanks,
James. Jim, on that note, a couple questions. One is, do we belong to a fuel buying consortium with surrounding towns? And secondly, did the Board of Ed offer unused fuel to you to put into your reserves?
So our bid, I think, was with CROG, right, Joe?
That's correct.
No, generally we go out with CROG as a group, but it's a spot market. The price changes daily. But we get to see which ones are interested in doing business with Rocky Hill because they'll come in with a lower price. And I guess Joe's been monitoring the market to hope that it will start coming down. But our idea is we may have to go out onto the spot market and pay market rate at the time we need the gas until we start seeing some decline in the pricing. So we don't lock in high and then pay for that during the whole period. So I don't think you've seen much downturn, Joe. It's been pretty much like over a $2 a gallon type of pricing.
Right now, it's holding at that $2 for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. And Joe, did the Board of Ed offer you some gas?
No, they did have extra fuel from not running the buses, but from COVID. But no, we didn't use it.
Thank you.
Joe, or Jim or whoever wants to, a couple questions. Going back to the motor fuel, during COVID, were fuel prices per gallon low, comparatively speaking, to the prior year, or like for the type of fuel you have to use, it didn't really, like, I know like consumer gas was down, but I don't know if like with diesel and things you have to use if it was down.
The problem is at the timing of the CROG coming out, that at the timing of that, their bid prices and everybody getting awarded for our district, the prices had risen. They were in the $1.90s, high $1.90s, which is obviously above last year also. So yeah, that when the prices were low, the bids hadn't come out yet, unfortunately.
Okay, so it's a timing issue. Yeah, got it. Okay.
It's with the fuel and gas bid grade, it's always timing.
Right. And maybe just talk a little about the overtime line there. Last year we had only budget 8,000. You're projecting to use 35, and then this year requesting 25. Maybe talk about kind of reconciling all those for us.
I mean, it's
Just related.
Yeah, it's all snow. It's all winter. You know, the year before we only had like 7 major events. We did get quite a few call outs, a little more than a dozen. I mean, this year we had 15 call outs with more significant snow amounts. And I think there were 6 weekends Sunday. I mean, we had.
Yeah, it seemed like they were always on a weekend.
this year, yeah, well, I wasn't home watching football on Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments for Joe?
Joe, I'll ask you the question on maintenance equipment. And I know that number fluctuates year to year. And, you know, I think, is there anything in there though that's kind of a larger dollar item? Because this year you still have a lot left in the budget. The year before you didn't use it. So maybe this year means you need to restock. I don't know.
No, so that number actually this year, and I just had a visit Jim and John about 3 weeks ago on a piece of equipment that's a little bit older that we had to spend some money on. So that budget in the next month you're going to see is going to get depleted because of a repair that we got to be made to 2 vehicles, and they're 2 frontline vehicles that we use every day, and the repairs got to be made.
So at the beginning of the year, just to add to that, I mean, we were concerned about COVID and what it was going to cost the town. So we were kind of holding the line as well, but now it's come to the point where we need to do something. We need to get these vehicles fixed.
Right. Joe, how many vehicles are you maintaining for the town as a department? Do you have a number?
I don't have the exact number, but it's
well, I mean, I'm just trying to get do we have 50? Do we have 100? I mean,
it's I think 168, maybe a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Vehicle and equipment
yeah,
too.
Yeah, equipment.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And just kind of following up on that, you know, as we think about what our expenditures look like, say over the next 5 or 10 years, some of the equipment, I imagine the more heavy duty stuff will keep as is, but for, I guess, the lighter vehicles, if we started backfilling or replenishing, I guess, with, you know, with electric vehicles, you know, obviously we would have to pay for fuel, we'd have to pay for energy, so there's changes off there. But do you think that we'd get a savings on the maintenance side, more for like the town fleet, not heavy duty vehicles? But is that something where we could potentially realize either savings on the maintenance or with more predictability on the energy side? What are your thoughts on that as we think about, you know, planning for the next, you know, 5-10 years, and these things start coming down in price?
As far as my equipment down there with all the heavy equipment and the machinery, I don't know about the electric being available for that equipment. But as far as the town vehicles, you know, for all the town, the buildings, the facilities, the building officials and zoning, those vehicles, I definitely see in the next few years, hopefully in the next 10 years for sure, that they will be electric. I mean, it's where everybody's going, and I would imagine we will have a savings in fuel.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? All right. And Joe, will you be talking about road maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we just turn the page then to 60 and 61, and we can get into that discussion.
So the changes again were, with salaries, overtime, obviously, and with COVID this year, I wasn't, some of the items wasn't able to really spend, of course, on training. But some of the others, once we got to work, there really hasn't been much change. I think the only thing was uniforms that went up a little bit because pricing.
Okay, are there any questions or comments with respect to this particular piece of the budget?
I just have one question, is kind of relating to the conversation on the building. We obviously were getting lower energy costs on the building, but our street lighting seems to have remained consistent. And when I start looking at the numbers, 2019, 228, I projected out this year at about 220. Yeah, I know it's a projection, but I assume street lights are pretty consistent.
Yeah, I think I'm going to defer that question to Mona or John. With the electric, I'm really not too much involved with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd say right now it's at 179,000, and it's projecting to probably be ending at around 240. So that's 250 is probably reasonable. But it tends to stay relatively steady. And that wasn't on one of our on the CROG bid.
Right, but most of our lights have already been changed to the LEDs or the street lights. Maybe not some of the traffic signals yet. Okay. I mean, it's just a projection, so it's.
Also, distribution would be a rising cost by the electric company as well. But even if we save on the electricity side, they always seem to be able to raise the distribution charges.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, let me ask you, Joe, are you going to present on sanitation?
Yes.
Okay, so we can then turn the page 64 and 65. Okay.
Yeah, sanitation. So one of the changes, obvious, for all the wood that we collect during all these events, these storms, and the 3 times that we collect during the year for trimmings and brush and shrubs. That number obviously is significant and really hasn't been in this sanitation budget in the past year. So that's a significant number. You're going to see that change. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same across the board.
Well, we did have we had increased in disposal because of the mirror tipping fee going up, I think $10 a ton. And we caught a break with MDC being flat in their calendar year budget, projecting a savings to the town because we're on a fiscal year budget. So it's sort of caught a break from the MDC this year, but don't count on it on a regular basis.
Or if we're at the Q&A part, can you talk about the grinding service line? A couple years ago, it was 15,000 for the year. It was 0 in the budget, 0 projected to be used. Now we're going back to 45,000. Is that an every other year thing or what?
No, this will be every year. We're moving forward. This is going to be the budget for every year for that cost. It just we didn't have a line item in any exact within sanitation. We utilize other line items in order to grind the brush, but now we're making a line item for the sanitation budget in order to take care of all the grinding that needs to get taken care of.
Yeah, Joe goes out to bid, and this is kind of the number that we would anticipate just for the annual brush pickup that we do on the curbs. Of course, we had Isaiah creating a tremendous amount of brush that, cost a lot of money, and hopefully Mona will get it back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that was kind of absorbed in other line items. This is an actual operating line item that we need.
Right. So was that like absorbed like sewer service charge? I'm guessing because it's a negative number. Is that part of the reason for the negative number? Or is it somewhere else?
No, sewer service charge is the 4 ad valorem payments to the MDC. That's a fixed dollar amount. I think what we did is we received some money from MERA when CRRA accounting was closed out, and we put that into the non-reoccurring fund to cover expenses associated with the operation of the transfer station. So hopefully we use some of that money to do the grinding with hopes of getting reimbursement from FEMA on about 75% of the cost of the grinding. But what our intention is here is to establish a fixed dollar amount going forward so that we do have money to grind up all this brush that the town picks up. And if we have bad storms, tropical storms, even greater amounts. So hopefully we just establish this amount going forward.
But I mean, John, just to expand on Jeff's question, I mean, is this for equipment, or is this something that we could share with Weathersfield or Newington?
No, this is the grinding. When I reach out to all the vendors throughout the state or utilize the CROG for grinding, that's the cost. The cost is expensive to grind brush and remove it.
What if we had our own machine?
Those machines are $1 million
for grinding.
Yeah, a tub grinder. It's a tub grinder, not
it's not a tub grinder. They call it a mega grinder. They are $1 million. That's how much they cost.
I mean, that's for multi-feet trees, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about brush.
Yeah, but the service. I mean, like IASIS, I can't leave those logs on the side of the road. So
that brush piles up pretty quickly. And I think Joe had some pictures of what it looked like after the storm. And it's well over 10, 15 feet tall and pretty football length.
It was actually the length of the pile was 178 feet by 164 feet, and it was 16 feet high.
Right.
So is this using an outside contractor?
Yes.
So it's an annual.
They take it away. They take the stuff away too, right, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, they grind the material and then they haul it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And is that that's a contract, and is that like we pay them a flat rate and they come out as needed, or is that estimate based on what we think the demand will be over the next year?
No, as needed. I mean, I'm planning now for July, August. I've already communicated with the vendor that we had last year through the state. And they're going to come out, they look at the piles, they'll estimate for, when I collect in July, they'll estimate, what I'll probably collect for July and then give me his best price. And that's how we do it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I just have a quick question. It's more like thinking a little bit ahead. So, we recently joined the Connecticut Coalition of Sustainable Materials Management. I don't know if I've been following that with the state on trash and recycling, but do you contemplate maybe having something for organic food scraps at the transfer station at some point? Is that something we might want to explore, or people could just drop off their organics? Or
I don't know if we're permitted for that. I mean, it goes through DEEP as far as the transfer station goes. So I'm not sure, because I would assume it needs some special handling, and I don't know what's involved in getting rid of it.
Probably need a vendor, I would think. Yeah.
There are vendors. I've done it before with in the larger areas that I worked, where we took in commercial also. But I mean, us being just residential, it's a smaller bin, something that holds only like 500, 600 gallons, that they would come and place their material in. And then I would have a service where they come, suck it out, clean it, and take it to a composting facility. But I haven't checked into it, but I would probably definitely need a permit to do it, just like I have permits for everything else we have down there. And then location, it's just finding a spot in that area would be difficult to have, a lot of residents coming down to dispose their material. It's a tight area.
Yeah, it is.
The other issue that we've had with recycling oil, for example, is that if somebody puts the wrong thing in that container, we have a contaminated load and it makes it worse. So we'd have to have it monitored to make sure that the right material is going into that tank.
And then just on the trash pickup, do we pick up the trash at apartment complexes? And because I see there's town condominiums listed.
Yes.
Okay.
So could you elaborate why we pick up at apartments? I mean, condominiums, I get, are owned, but apartments are, part of their lease agreement.
Yeah, there's quite a few places. I came here, that was what was in place.
Okay. And it's something I guess we should be looking at. And I definitely see apartments different than condominiums. The other question in that area, we contract for 5,571 residential units for refuse, but 6,070 for recycling.
So that's based on units, it's not the residential homes. I believe there's 5,000 so many homes. It's the unit, it's the barrel itself that's out there. So a lot of homes, if you notice when you're driving by, when they're trash collection, they'll have two or three recycling carts out, and one trash or two trash and two recycling. So they base that number is based on the units.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I could use recycling pickup probably more frequently than garbage.
Yeah. Well, if you see, that's what's happening throughout the country. It's more, they're reversing. They're starting to change, where recycling's getting picked up every week and trash is getting moved out, and smaller containers are being made available instead of the larger ones. A lot of towns are starting.
Well, now I'm glad I asked the question.
Absolutely.
And just to get back to the apartments, only because sometimes people are complaining that the recycling things don't get recycled at the apartments. So do we only pick up trash and not recycling?
No. So all the units that we have a trash cart out, they have to have a recycling cart.
Okay.
That's automatic. It's what we do. But there are some facilities out there that we're not collecting, where they have their own paints come in, or other vendors, other contractors. And the complaint is that, yes, there is only a trash. And I have reached out to some of those vendors that they have to have a recycling pickup. They have to have one. If you have trash, you have to have recycling. That's one of the DEP, they kind of demand that. That's what they want. If you're gonna have your trash removed, you got to have recycling. And they have to, the vendor has to supply the unit.
So what is the distinction? I guess what is the rationale for some of the apartment owners to have us pick up the trash and some of them are doing it on their own?
Like I said, 5 years ago when I came in, this is what the town was doing, and they had a contract, and the contract now goes out for a couple more years, and this is our collection and our schedule. This is what it is. So we're maintaining it.
I think if I could recall, the town council at the time had quite a debate on providing the service to taxpayers, all the taxpayers, and obviously the people that own the apartments are paying taxes, property taxes. Same for the condominiums. That's what the distinction is that Al was mentioning, that, yeah, they're paying property tax, but so will some of these apartments. So I think that, I don't know if John was there, but I think they were trying to make it fair across the board. This decision was made over 20 years ago to provide this service. But I like the idea of taking a good look at it, and if we can eliminate it and put it in a different form, maybe we should look at that, especially since they're not even providing recycling.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, thank you.
I think the only problem there, Jim, is if we release our obligation to provide the service to apartments, they're just going to pass on the cost to renters to contract out.
Yeah, that's what we have to look at, both sides of that.
Yep.
You're right.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So, Joe, I think that's it, right? We did 1, 2, and 3.
Everybody needs a break after that.
Go get that Red Sox banner.
Well, we want to thank all of you, Jim, Mike, Steve, Kim, and Joe. We appreciate all of your hard work this year. Truly an incredible, unprecedented time to be having to do all that you're doing and get it done and keep everyone safe. That was the important part, because in the beginning of the pandemic, we were all terrified, and I don't know who it was, but someone said in the beginning that, you know, if you didn't implement all of those mitigation strategies and even just one person got sick, it would have crippled your department or any department, and that never happened. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your leadership and your continued support. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. All right, well, good night.
You too.
And
Thank you. Good night.
let's move on and turn the page to Parks and Rec, page 74 and 75. And we will start with grounds.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Hello.
I just to echo kind of what all the other department heads said prior to me, but I'm very thankful for the job that our parks crew and our staff here in the office has done in the last year, as well as all of our lifeguards and counselors and of the such. I'm very lucky to have them. They shine throughout this pandemic. Our park staff powered through and didn't miss a beat the entire time, which I was very proud of. And our recreation staff here in the office had to we had to really test our creativity limits and boundaries and lots of conversations and contingency planning with the health director. So it was a challenging year. I'm looking forward to the future here. It looks like we're on the right path finally. And just thankful to have them. They did a great job. Going to the parks budget, there's a couple of small increases, I guess, if you want to go about it this way. The first small increase is in service contracts, an increase of $1,500, and that is for yearly grooming of the Miracle Field, putting the Miracle Field at Elmridge Park on a maintenance plan. We actually just had them out last week or 2 weeks ago. This is something that needs to be done just to protect our investment. We did a similar thing with the McVicker Field turf. And the only other increase is an increase of $6,000 in court repair. And that was due simply to, we have some cracking in the court. And rather than go out and replace the entire court, because it's very cost prohibitive at this point, this would allow a contractor to come in and do some crack repair filling and put some of their fiber tape down, and then they can overlay over those cracks for us. It's a specialty that the company does. That on the park side, I mean, that's it. I can tell you in the last year, our park staff has done a really good job of, specifically Walt. We have done a lot of, working together with some of the towns around us. We have implemented some strategies from a staffing standpoint to where, we are trying to share some of our part-time seasonal staff so that they work with us for their 120 days. And then we can turn them over to another town in the district. And then the towns in the district can then give us employees for the fall. And they're already trained. So we don't have to OSHA train them. We don't have to. So from a money saving standpoint, it doesn't save money on the surface, but it does save money because it saves Walt's time. Walt is able to train. He has to do less training with some of these employees. So we've done that. I know the regionalization thing is a big piece. We also have participated. We've started a monthly consortium with 3 of the other towns in the district, plus Cromwell actually, where they meet monthly, and the crew leaders from each of the garages meet monthly, and they go over any issues they might be having, whether it's turf disease or a new piece of equipment that they had that they want to show us how to use. If there's any pool maintenance issues. So we're meeting on a monthly basis. Walt has really kind of spearheaded that campaign, the Rocky Hill side as. We've also utilized some equipment from the other towns, or from some of the other towns, and we've also helped some of the other towns. So in the fall, Berlin needed a skid steer to use to redo a baseball diamond, and their skid steer was broken. They used our skid steer. Next week, Berlin actually is coming out with their new aeration machine, and they're gonna aerate both of our Mosier fields, aerate, overseed, slice seed for us, and the only cost to us is the seed. So some of the things that we're doing, I was going to try, and I think there was something else, but we have been working together with those towns pretty regularly, which is a good thing. Be happy to take any questions you guys have about the parks budget. Fire away.
Okay, you heard him. Fire away. Hearing not.
Actually, this is more, not so much about what you're requesting next year, but obviously you had a topsy-turvy year with COVID. Well, is this budget going to come out at, are you going to come out at budget with actual expenditures in this current year, or do you think you're going to be below, or is it still hard to tell at this point? Or
no, I think we're going to be pretty close to hitting it, just because this is the time of year where we do a lot of spending, with our fields and our paint and, our irrigation, our pool startup, things like that. I think that we're going to spend a good portion of it. But we are monitoring that. And, if there's a way to, not spend in certain areas, we will. We're over budget on trees. We're right around on overtime, which is good. Other than that, we might come in under on on our salaries account, just because we couldn't hire as many folks last year with COVID. So there might be a possibility there where we don't go over. But the bottom line is the stuff's got to get done. And what we found, it was actually a lot more challenging. Some of the fields got some much needed rest, but some of the fields got too much rest. So sometimes it actually has an adverse effect, and we have to put more time on certain fields because of the extra rest that they got. So it's been a challenge. All the towns in the district had the same effect. Everyone said, "Oh my gosh, you guys must not." No, it's actually been tougher in some instances.
Yeah, we were talking to Walt the other day. He was saying because there's no cleats on the fields to kind of turn it up a little and to get seated, that you actually have to replicate that yourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, and thinking about my question might be more pertinent when you get to the organized activities versus the grounds, because the grounds, like I said, have to be maintained regardless. So
yep.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Just for the court repair that you mentioned, which court is that? The tennis court by the high school? Is it the one?
No, it's the it's Maxwell deck hockey.
Okay.
Maxwell deck hockey court. Yep.
Thanks.
Which, if everyone wants to know, to replace it soup to nuts, strip it down, replace the fencing, and put in post-tension concrete, which would be good for 25 years. It's about $125,000 to do. So just so everyone's aware of that.
All right, why don't we then turn our page to 78 and 79 and talk about the organized activities.
Okay. So going to organize, hold on, I gotta get my budget book here. So we had a couple increases and a couple decreases, or one decrease. So in the first two line items, we did have some increases in part-time salaries by an increase of 15,000, and that was for community center coverage after hours. So essentially, when you would come into the building, that's basically paying a part-timer to be supervising the center at night for about 4 hours a night. So 4:30 to 8:30, 5 to 9, something like that. And that would be for 5 nights a week. And that's assuming that the center has something going on, every night. If there wasn't something going on for a night, they wouldn't be working. The next one was an increase in program activities. The main increase being kicking in a little bit more money towards our Fall Fest, but the majority of it just being for some community center startup programs. So, we're going to be doing some new innovative programs, and we might, need money for the startup of those, whether it's, an esports league for gaming, or it's, some of the green screen technology courses that we're going to be offering in the future at the center. That's kind of where that increase is. And we actually cut back on our printing and advertising account by 5,000. We're trying to downsize how many brochures that we offer. We want to go from 4. We've actually already started this, but we're going to go from 4 to 3 in the future. So we're going to have a summer brochure, a fall brochure, and a winter spring brochure combined. So we did cut back there. And yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have for the organized budget.
Craig, I'll pose the question to you. COVID obviously was a challenging time, and you guys got creative with a couple of different programs that came out.
Mhm.
And one was your, I think you called it Frisbee Golf at Night.
Yep.
And I participated in that, and with the exception of there missing a beer cart, it was a fantastic activity. So obviously I'm joking about that, but really
I'm not.
But any but any activities that you
No, he's not.
we can actually make a fundraiser with that, but we'll talk about that later.
Mhm.
But any activities that you kind of learned or were successful with during COVID that you may continue to bring back?
Yeah, so actually, the first one that you mentioned, our Frisbee golf UFO nights, we are going to run again this summer. That was a huge hit. We actually won an award from our state association for the innovative program of the year, which was kind of cool. Logan did a really great job spearheading that program. But another program that we had a lot of success with was our drive-in movie program. And that was a huge hit. The community really seemed to enjoy it. We are going to bring those back this summer, and luckily it's looking like we're not going to have any capacity issues with in terms of spacing cars and other such. So, we'll be able to take more cars and more people will be able to go to it, which is going to be great. We have the movies all picked out already. The community voted on them through a community survey.
Where are you holding where are you going to hold the drive-in? What location?
We hope to hold it again at the high school, just because the way the lot is situated and the screen fits perfectly kind of in this alcove area in front of the building. And we were able to add power there that can support the blowers that blow up the screen. So that was a really successful program for us. Yeah, I mean, I would say those were like the two biggest successes that we had. The actual drive-in movies are going to replace the old movies that we used to have in the park at Elmridge for good. So, we were able to kind of mix and match and do some, our Easter Bunny event we really liked just last month, and Hop Around the Hill we called it, but I think that might be in for a permanent change. So in a sense, COVID kind of tested us. It made us think outside the box. Some things worked, some things didn't. And I do think that the Zoom programming for our fitness classes has been going very well. And I think that's something that will be, on the docket in the future for us. I think with the technology that the new building is going to have, we're going to be able to utilize that as well. So, you could be in Florida potentially signing up for a fitness class and taking it in Florida, and it's happening in Rocky Hill. A year ago, no one would even think that was even possible. So it's over our eyes for sure.
Craig?
Yes.
Yeah. On the summer concert series up at the band shell, I mean, how's that? That's going to resume in normal mode?
Yep. We are. We have all the bands booked. It's pretty much the same lineup we had as last summer, so they're going to be back. We're going to have to work around the COVID guidelines, but I think once we get into the middle of the summer, the way everything's leaning now, I think it's going to be, if you're going to order food from the food truck, you might have to wear a mask. But if you're in your cluster of folks on the hill watching the concert and drinking an orange juice or a soda, you're going to be fine.
Very good, Craig.
And then the other question I had for you is jumping back to facilities. I noticed that you were able to get in there and weed whack the pond, the retaining pond or whatever. I know that still needs to be dredged. Do you have a number on what that would cost to dredge? And might that be an infrastructure project potential?
Yeah, I had a number a few years ago on our budget. I want to say it was like in CIP. It was like 160 maybe. 140 or 160. You know, I'd really have to weigh that. It's not something that people are beating down our door to do. You know, I think if you ask me right now, if someone gave me a check for $160,000 to put towards something in the park, I think there might be some more viable options than, you know, doing it or dredging a pond for a man-made pond that is, and sometimes, like last winter, I think there might have been 2 days that we could have ice skated. 2. This winter, there was a couple of more days, but there weren't really that I was ever comfortable with saying, yes, go in the pond and skate. You know, the water that they put in there is the water from the catch basins. You know, you get some of the salt water or salt that goes into the catch basins that helps fill that pond. And I think the winters have been a lot more milder than they used to be. So it's something we could consider. I could definitely get a price on it for sure, but it needs to be done. You know, it's definitely a capital project. I don't think it's anything we can do in-house.
So, Craig, great job last year, like on everything. I think all of us feel the same way on all the hard work that goes into that. A couple of questions, and we have had this discussion before, like in other forums, town council forums, I should say, outside of the budget meetings, is the idea of like, and you're kind of like, you know, pointing to that a little bit in your earlier reply, the idea of like measuring what are the programs which are the most utilized versus which are not, right? And this idea is of like, you know, how much, I know you do it like through surveys. I remember like you doing a few surveys the year prior to this one, or 2020, I should say, to measure some of the, utilization side of things, like what people like in the town, people don't like in the town. What I wanted to know was like, in terms of like helping do like that kind of measurement, what are the things you would like to have? Like in the survey is one tool, right? Like, is there any other way? So for example, the app we are developing for, or I should say John Murphy is working on, for the town, something like that, will it help you collect the data on utilization of your programs and, manage those programs better, put your money where it's most, well spent, things like that. So, I'm just thinking like, from a measurement standpoint, do you want to like, adopt more digital formats to interact with the residents than, printing, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, we have actually done a study with, the print. So first of all, the brochure is the end all be all for getting information from our department, whether it's in a digital format or a printed format. We have found that the brochure and the way we email our database through MyRec, those are the two most efficient ways to get information out to the public, right? I'm sure that I'll be able to work with John for MyRec to be able to be linked through the app for the town. But I guess from like a digital format too, there might be some potential savings somewhere down the line where we can almost eradicate the printing of the brochure and doing it all digitally. However, I don't think that is I don't think that will be the most popular thing to do, because there still is a contingent of people who need the tangible product, right? So there might be ways that we can cut back on putting the brochure in the Rocky Hill Life taking that out and still printing, you know, a couple hundred per, you know, per brochure, and leaving them in prominent places in town, like the library, the senior center. And if someone wants a hand copy brochure, they can call us and say, hey, I'd like a copy of the brochure, and we can set it aside for them. So I think that could be the way that we move in the future. I'm just a little hesitant to do it coming off a pandemic and, you know, really reintroducing our programming back to the town. I want to kind of take a hybrid approach right now. So
no,
I
I
hope
think
that answers what you're asking.
it has to be phased. I completely understand that.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that just start it up. I think just a plan towards that will be nice. The first part of question though, like about measuring more effectively how your programs are doing from a digital standpoint, actual data standpoint, right? That's what I was trying to get at from the first part. I mean, the second part is definitely some cost savings on the printing side and all that, which we are trying to be more responsible. I get that, and you're working towards it. I get that. But from a measuring standpoint, can we use more of the digital tools available to us, as which will do eventually, so that we are not like, because we know that, to a certain extent, how you measure your programs, and that better than I do, right? The success of your programs. But it gives us a tangible way to do this if we adopt the app the way it's being designed right now. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, it's something I would definitely look into. I can't give you that answer like off the top of my head right now. And I know that you're a data guy. And so, any way for me to be able to pick your brain, that might be able to help too at some point.
No, absolutely. Anytime. So no, I just thought that was a great tool for you, because I think Parks and Rec is one of those departments which really can use some of that. So, but absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. Thank you.
Just a quick question. It looks like there's a new line item for equipment repair. It's not huge, but hasn't been in the last few. So could you just tell us a little bit about what that item is?
Good catch, Councilman Duff. That is actually to enter into a yearly maintenance agreement on the fitness equipment that will be in the new center.
Yep, that makes sense.
And the company that we would get that from is actually a local company, Total Fitness. That's where we bought the equipment for the the community senior center. So that's a local company. It would be one of those things where that includes the maintenance and then, any on-call type problems that might occur.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Why don't we move on to the next page, 8081, and talk about aquatics.
All right, so I'm not sure if all of you know, I think most of you know, but we do have a new aquatics / recreation supervisor named Nick Pizzoferrato. He comes to us actually from Newington. I actually stole him from my old boss. So he came well trained, which is great. He's doing a fantastic job so far. There wasn't really many increases on this side. We had a little bit in the maintenance area, and the other one was in pool repairs. So maintenance went up by 3,800, and that's just with the new yearly disinfecting and deep clean procedure that we'd like to hire out for. The pool repairs one it's really, that was flat, except for there is a small leak.
That was that repairs we're doing to Elmridge.
No,
we transferred some money from, I think it's from your full part-time, because you had surplus, and we're doing some repairs. It doesn't reflect the transfer.
Yeah,
that's why the 46 is standing out.
Yeah, that's why that one is showing that, just so everyone knows. And that was approved at the finance committee level. From a budgeting standpoint, there is a charge in there for a $6,100 main drain repair that has to happen at the indoor pool eventually. you know, it's there, and you know, it hasn't gotten worse lately, but I think it's something that we should be, you know, taking care of at some point. And, you know, I think this is the budget year to potentially do it. You know, our budget's only coming in about 5,000 more than it was last year. And the last thing that went up was our chemicals. And that's just because of the cost of chemicals is increasing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the pool. As you, I don't know, most of you probably know, we were able to operate the pool last year, the outdoor pool at Elm Ridge. So that was a battle to get that open, but it went off without a hitch, and we fully plan on operating the pool this summer with less restrictions. We're not going to have as many restrictions on the deck. And we also are looking to open the indoor pool as well at the high school this summer. We're probably going to be switching our swim lessons from indoors to outdoors and utilizing the indoor pool at the high school solely for our summer escape day camp. Just to limit the amount of, keep the amount of users, you know, the same on a weekly basis. Oh.
Okay. Any questions on aquatics? All right, well, we want to say thank you and congratulate you for a successful season during the pandemic. That was, you really did think a lot out of the box and made a lot of residents and a lot of children happy in a very difficult time. And I am very impressed about the consortium that was started. It seems with you and Mary doing that, that you're making good strides and being collaborative with the other towns and other departments. And thank you for doing that.
And
appreciate it.
And congratulations on stealing someone from your old. Love that.
All right.
Thanks for everyone's support. I really appreciate it.
Okay, have a great evening.
Thanks.
All right, we are going to now switch directions and move to police. And the first topic is administration, and we will move to pages 38 and 39 of the proposed budget.
Okay, with that said, Mayor, good evening, everyone. Chief Custer here. And along with me is Lieutenant Klett, who's my administrative commander. And I was just listening in on Craig's discussion on organized activities and some of the commentary. And I would just like to suggest to you 3 words, Craig. Still Hill Brewery. They're right here in town. Check them out. Anyways, you know, like the other departments, we tried to keep our budget as flat as possible. And with the exception of a request for 2 additional staff members, we made a slight adjustment on an overtime line. Basically, the few increases you saw here are contractual, either through the collective bargaining agreement or through contractual services for maintenance programs. But outside of that, everything was pretty much the same as last year. So with that said, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions on the administrative side here?
Chief Custer, this Pankaj here. Again, thank you for all your support last year and doing a great job on providing the services we expect in this town, and the residents have come to expect of. So my question about the 2 new hires is, I want you to lay out how it's going to help us, and help you do a better job, in terms of putting those resources for better policing in light of the 2020, all the break-ins and property crimes that were on the rise. So, if you can talk a little bit about that, how that helps you do your job better, that would be awesome.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, really the impetus for the request for 2 additional officers has been my desire for some time now to increase our staffing level here. So right now, a typical shift, our minimum mandatory staffing requirement is 3 officers and a sergeant. There are times, very few times, when we do run in excess of that, but the reality is almost always on a weekend, on midnights, and most of the time during the week, that's what we have on the road. And we really have gotten to a level with call volume and, especially the past year, we started experiencing some crime trends that we have not seen in town for years. And I think it's long overdue that we take a look at that minimum staffing level and increase it. And that's what the 2 officers that I'm asking for would do. What it would allow me to do is to go to 4 officers and a sergeant. Now, mind you, the sergeant is not on the road the full shift. They have administrative duties they have to attend to as well. So, they're reviewing reports, they're signing off on reports, they're overseeing prisoners being booked, they're filling for overtime, etc. So basically, we're running just 3 cars in town, and you get one accident, you could easily tie a bad accident, all 3 of them up. Domestic violence calls require 2 officers. Alarm calls require 2 officers. There's a plethora of policy calls that we have where we require 2 officers. So right off the bat, 2/3 of your staff is tied up. So having that 4th officer on the shift would give us a lot more flexibility, and it would also allow us to do some proactive policing. When we're running 3 all the time, we're just total reactionary mode. We're responding to calls. There's very little opportunity to be proactive in terms of crime prevention, community outreach, and all the other things like we'd like to do. So these 2 additional officers would be +2, which would put us right where the Department of Justice guidelines suggest for an agency our size with the population that we have. And it would take a tremendous amount of stress off the present staffing levels that we're dealing with right now. Hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, it does. And being on public safety, I think we have had these conversations for the whole of last year. And just to be clear, like you right now have 3 officers and a sergeant, just getting that additional 4th one on the road is gonna be just help you like have more people on the streets, like more presence on the streets, and that can help us tremendously. And I do appreciate you doing that job, like a tough job last year with all the property crime situation, with the resources you had. And I think some of this new personnel you're asking for is really well deserved at this point. I think, especially from the guidance perspective from the Department of Justice and what we have been observing the whole of last year. And also, I would like to talk a little bit about how you have done more with less in terms of the whole last year with the equipment situation, and how you had to manage the older cars and things like that, the equipment license readers and things like that. And where are we on that, Chief? Do you feel like you have the resources from that standpoint, from the equipment standpoint? And I know there were some state grants and things like that, for the cameras but can you talk a little bit about that as well, from a resourcing, not the personnel, but the equipment standpoint? Do you have enough resources for being effective?
We do, actually. So we're in good shape with our resources and our equipment overall, and happily, the budget can. The present budget can sustain just about all of our equipment and resource needs. When you hit those big items that come along every so often, like a license plate reader, which can be upwards to $40,000, that's an exception. And we will go out and look for grants. After 9/11, there was a plethora of grants out there, especially public safety. Those have all kind of dried up. So, it's been a challenge to find federal grant money out there for big ticket items. But happily, through our own resourcefulness and the present budget that we have, we're in good shape in terms of equipment.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to thank you for all this support on public safety and for the data you have provided over the last couple of years with some timeline trends and things like that. So I think we are moving in the right direction, and I wanted to commend you for doing a good job here. And thank you.
Much appreciated. You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments with respect to this section of the chief's presentation? All right, if not, we're going to turn the page and move to 40 and 41, which is records and communications.
I think that's good, right?
Nobody's communicating with you, Mike.
But we're looking at it in the for contractual services. There's an increase about $16,000.
Yes.
Could you just tell us a little bit what that looks like?
Yeah, what's driving that is basically a new line item, and it's related to the body cam and dash cam system that we'll be implementing this fiscal year. So, what goes along with that obviously is a maintenance program. So that's basically that's the increase you see right there. And I'll give you an update on the body cams and dash cams too, while we're on the topic, because you're probably wondering. So we've been pulling in policies from other agencies in the state and, through CALEA. And so we've gathered all the best practices in body cam usage and dash cam usage. And we've constructed together our own policy. My staff put it together. I have reviewed it. I'll be approving it shortly, and we'll be releasing it to the agency. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to run a short little pilot program where we're going to probably pick 2 or 3 officers because we really have till next year to implement this. We're going to be ahead of the curve. We'll run 2 or 3 officers in a pilot program just to get used to the system and work out the kinks and get some feedback from them. And that'll happen probably in the next month or so. And then shortly thereafter, we'll roll it out for the whole agency. So again, we'll be ahead of the curve. We'll be doing it in 2021. It's not mandated till 2022.
And in terms of the body cams and the dash cams, I know we pursued some last year. Do we have enough for the department, or is there be some of that paid out of this budget as well?
Yes, well, we will have enough for the whole budget department. We've already secured monies to buy enough for half the fleet and half of the officers. And then there's, well, this gets a little tricky. There's a request for the additional monies in this budget under capital to get the rest of them. However, we're actually getting a reimbursement from the state because of the grant we were able to take care of and secure. So what we're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, John, is pretty much what we're going to be getting back from the state.
Right now, you spent $175,000 on all of that camera equipment that you mentioned. And Brian secured a grant through OPM to get 50% cost reimbursement before it dry up. And that was recently awarded to the town at the last bond commission meeting. And then when we get that money in, it'll go back towards the camera project. And then whatever additional items that you need to acquire, you'll be using that money there. So, so basically, it's costing the town about $175,000 to get probably over $260,000 of equipment.
And then just, you had mentioned that you're working on putting together the policy around use of the body cameras, and This is probably would be more appropriate to have more detail around that policy when it goes to public safety, because there's certain reasons to have them, making sure that procedures are followed. If something does happen, hopefully it indicates, that it illustrates that our officers are working in, an appropriate manner. But there's some other like civil liberty concerns as well. If there's what happens with that footage, if it is able to be accessed by the public, how long does it get held on to? If there's no actually arrest or conviction, does it still make someone look bad? Is that something that potentially at a public safety meeting, once you've ironed out all those details, you could present to make people feel maybe a little bit more information how that footage might be used?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I could share it with the committee just before we roll it out. And you're right, there's a number of issues, Chris, that have to be addressed. And, one big piece there is privacy, right? And dealing with certain types of crimes and victims and juveniles and so forth. So, we feel what we have is a robust best practice policy. So, that's something, I can talk to Ed about. Maybe we could put that on the agenda when it's ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was a little concerned, so you have both car cams and body cams, but I'm wondering about the restriction of movement or tangling up of lines. I mean, are the officer, I imagine it's going to get some time used to having another piece of gear strapped to you, and they look pretty, their belts look pretty heavy as it is.
Those will actually be fitted on their chest, on their torso.
Oh.
So, which actually makes sense, right? Because it's center point. So they won't be on the belt. And they're manufacturing actually shirts now, and the devices itself have clips, but shirts now where you can just affix them to the shirt. So, but you're right, it's all new. So that's why we're going to do that little pilot rollout and kind of work out the bugs and figure out what works best.
So I know that the storage is an expensive component to this. And I think you had mentioned maybe at a public safety or at some point in, some meeting that there is someone who's going to be responsible for this particular data. And I'm just wondering, how do you see that role growing, if at all, in the future? Because I would imagine at some point you're going to have a ton of data. And I mean, you're a 24/7 operation, right? So will there be a person specific to, body camera and car camera data?
Yes and no. There will be somebody assigned, but that won't be their sole responsibility. And you're right on point. I'm concerned about that because I think we may reach a point where it could require that. So it will be handled under support services, which is Brian's, who's on with me, his division. He'll be overseeing it. Basically, he's got an officer or support service officer in addition to all his other responsibilities. Will be the primary on that. We'll also be using Sergeant Morgan, who also has other responsibilities. So hopefully it won't be overburdensome, but you're right, as time goes on, this data starts to build. But the other thing that concerns me is sometimes we get these crazy FOI requests, right? And you've seen them where I want every email for the last 10 years. And, to fulfill those requests can be just so time consuming and expensive. And there's been instances where that's happened in departments with this body cam footage. So that's where it's really going to hurt us, because now we're going to pull these guys offline, and of course you got to redact it, right? You have to review it, and if there's certain information that can't be released, it has to be redacted. So it's going to be a work in progress, but we do have a plan.
Thanks.
So, Chief, a related question: are you mandated to save the data for a certain period of time, or are you mandated to save it perpetually, this body cam video data?
Ironically, we want to keep it forever, but ACLU and NAACP and other organizations want to limit it. for privacy reasons. Brian, do you know if there is an actual, they were talking about a statute that put a finite amount?
The House bill has a retention period built into it. Off the top of my head, I do not know what that time period is, but the system will be set up to automatically delete files that are not flagged for save. So if we have a major or critical incident, those would be saved to the database forever. But anything that is not flagged or treated as a lifetime retention will be automatically purged in accordance with the policy and state FOI rules.
And is the storage on the cloud, or is it like, do you maintain like on-prem servers or?
No, so part of the grant gave us an opportunity to actually purchase, get 50% reimbursement for our own storage equipment. So we have our own local server here, and that's saving us. I don't remember what the savings was, but if we worked it out over time, it was more economical to buy our own server, maintain the data here under a service contract, which is what you're seeing as part of that increase to contractual service. So we've done a really good job as far as getting our own server, not relying on the cloud and adding additional lifetime costs to the program.
Does the license plate reader gear factor into this as well, this discussion? I mean, I guess you are saving in cataloging license plates.
The two systems are independent of each other, and we also retain that server for 3 towns. For our license plate reader system is housed here, and that also has an automatic purge system that's set up. I think that's 180 days, I believe. But again, it's in accordance with FOI and whatever policies that the state has handed down to us. But the two systems are completely separate from each other.
It seems like a bigger presence on the streets in the last month's time period in terms of traffic and neighborhood patrolling. Are you coordinating that? Is there any improved coordination with all this technology that's getting you into spots quicker, back up to actual traffic stops quicker? I mean, is the technology in this better, or are they just additional technologies?
Well, there has been an increased presence in town, but it's been a combination of two factors. We've been really pushing the troops to get out there and start becoming more visible, obviously, because of some of the problems we've been having. But the other piece that went to that goes along with that is we had quite a few vacancies since last October, as you know, between retirements and unanticipated departures because of the whole defund the police and the Police Accountability Act. And we really got walloped there. And so we are finally just about back to restoring those positions to where we were before it all happened. So with that, we can become a little bit more creative and proactive. So it's been a combination of those two things.
Okay, thank you. I think we can then we can turn to pages 42 and 43 and discuss investigations.
Not much to see on this page, virtually no change.
You just transferred a detective to patrol.
Mm-hmm.
So you just shifted staffing.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. I failed to mention that earlier. So I've already pulled a detective out of the bureau. We've went from 4 detectives to 3. It's really put a heavy workload on the 3 that are in there. But again, I'm trying to beef up the patrol rank so I can go to this increase in minimum staffing. So that officer will complement hopefully the 2 additional that we're requesting. But that's why you see the decrease on the detective page. That person was rolled into patrol.
You do plan to keep this person out there on the patrol with the potential 2 new hires. The extra person you have put out there right now. You do plan to keep him there.
Correct. Yeah. They're in patrol now, and you know my intention is to keep them there.
All right, well, why don't we go into uniform patrol then, pages 44 and 45. So you had a quiet year last year, obviously, with the overtime because you didn't have a lot of functions to go to due to COVID, but probably that will pick up a little bit. I know with our Memorial Day parade, that's a start and the pickup, and
Yeah,
5K is coming up. There's just little things now.
and that's a good point. There's always a lot of questions about the overtime, and sure, it backfills open shifts, right? When those vacancies occur. But to your point, it also funds those town activities, the parade. It funds any unforeseen event, whether it be a major crime like we had a few weeks ago in town. When we had the rally, we had pretty much the whole department involved in that. So, again, all those things draw off that overtime line. So that's what makes it so unpredictable, in a 24/7 operation. Plus you add in the fact, because we do have minimum staffing, we have to backfill. And, if other departments lose an employee or two, they just run short that day, where we can't really do that. We're running pretty much minimal all the time. So it's all those factors that play into that number.
Chief, if you, last year's budget, you had requested an extra patrolman that wasn't in the final budget. Where would that have been, if that was approved a year ago, would that have been a 4th district?
If I was to get that officer, John, my plan was to put that officer in patrol and ask for one more this year.
Right. Okay.
Because we've pretty much, figured out you need 3 to provide that around the clock. So the first one comes from the Detective Bureau, right, which we're already using, and then hopefully the other 2, through this request. But that was the plan. But since it didn't pan out, we're asking for 2 this year.
And I just want to make sure that, if these 2 are approved, that in 6 months' time, somebody's not going to be moving over to the Bureau out of patrol, and then you're going to be asking next year to fill that. Okay.
I will not, I promise you. And, I've already had discussions with the union, and they're embracing it, because, they're feeling it too.
Okay, thank you.
I would second that. I mean, I think there's a clear call for help from our neighborhoods and our community to get the patrols there, to feel safer, to be able to see patrols get to their neighborhood quickly. And so I do think you have a bit of a mandate there for patrol. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with John Emanuel.
Chief, one of the things I think we talked about maybe last year was kind of cycling out some of the old ammunition that was used for training. Is that complete, or are we still kind of working on that?
Well, actually, our ammunition program is in good shape, and we were proactive. We kind of got short one year where we didn't have enough, and since then we've gone to a program where we order a year ahead of time. And I'll tell you, it's been a blessing, because we've run into shortages since then. And case in point, there's a shortage right now. Trying to get ammunition, backlogged several months. So we went to this order the year ahead kind of schedule, and it's worked out well for us. So as we discussed this today, right now, we have enough this year and for the year ahead. And we'll just keep doing that, because it just seems that it's a volatile product in terms of availability, but we're in good shape.
You can't find it on the shelves anywhere, that's for sure.
Yeah, and the price has gone up too. It's crazy. It's almost like lumber. All of a sudden, that's tripled in price. But no, we're in good shape.
And the other question I had was relating to training. So, there's been a lot of conversation, I guess, over the last year or so about things like de-escalation and community engagement. Is there any additional training that we'd have, or is that something that would be already covered under the CALIA process? Anything that we'd reevaluate based on that might make it different than past years?
There was some language in the Police Accountability Act, which is mandating more training in mental health awareness, which again, we were somewhat ahead of the curve because we were sending, we offer a 40-hour training session to our officers that deal with people in crisis. There was also a mandate for training in, it wasn't cultural diversity, but do you remember what they called it, Brian? I can't remember the term, but you know, police minority relations. There's a buzzword that it's often referred to, but again, we're providing that through our mandatory training already. So we were in pretty good shape, and I think in large part because of CALEA, you know, following the standards, we were ahead of the curve. A lot of the stuff that was in the Police Accountability Act is not going to be problematic for us because of our adhering to CALEA standards. But some of the other agencies in the state are really scrambling because they're starting from basically ground zero. So training is just another area, again, where we've benefited from being, you know, accredited. So, you know, we're in good shape there.
Well, one of the areas that we didn't get to in that general area, Chief, is we didn't have the emergency, you know, mock drill, which rotates. I mean, that's emergency management, and obviously the pandemic put it off, but I think now we're 2 years out from running a mock event, which I believe we would want to get back on the calendar. And
I agree.
That's an emergency management thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we kind of took a pause last year on a lot of things because of COVID, but that will certainly be on the agenda for this year.
Chief, I know that our SRO program is important here in the community, and it is, you know, sometimes where our patrol people end up going. And maybe you can speak a little bit about, you know, where you see the SRO program going and its value to your department.
Well, I mean, the SRO program has just been an excellent tool for us, and I stand firmly behind it. The superintendent of schools stands firmly behind it. He continues, as well as I, to get positive feedback from parents and community. Ironically, in the last or the present legislative session, there was actually a bill introduced to eliminate the school resource officer program in the state of Connecticut. And I'm happy to report there was absolutely no appetite up there at all for doing away with SROs. So the latest report that we got through the Chiefs Association was that bill is dead. So I think even the politicians who can't agree on a lot of things agreed that SROs are a good thing and it's a positive program. So ours continues to be strong. We had to run a little short staffed this past school year, but the school year was a little screwy anyways because of COVID. But because of our staffing, but I'm happy to report we'll be back fully staffed for the school year beginning in September, and we're ready to go. And again, it's, you know, it's been nothing but an asset from our perspective, and Dr. Zito tells me the same from theirs.
Yeah, Chief, I think the Board of Ed views it as a great outreach for the kids to learn, you know, to learn what police, to try to begin to build a bridge to connect, that you're not just what they see on TV, but you're there to help them. I mean, I guess, you know, that's what I'm hearing out of the Board of Ed, is that it's a great outreach to connect the officers and the children with each other.
Well, it takes on added value in that regard, especially there's a lot of negativity, right, going on right now. So I think when you can present an opportunity for positive interactions between police and the kids, we all benefit from it.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments with respect to uniform patrol?
Chief, could I just pose one question to you? Kind of related to our budget. Outside of personnel, if there was a wish list, a tool that you don't have, something that would help you keep our community safe, help your patrolmen, Do you have an idea of what that may be? What tools you could add to your toolbox?
We talk about this all the time. And, I'm going to be honest with you, we're really in good shape. Brian, you can chime in here. But, in our recent discussions regarding that, I think one thing we did identify was some updated license plate readers, especially like those portable ones on a trailer. Those would be helpful. They would be an additional tool that we could use. Again, I'd like to place them at the gateways into our community, where we would be alerted, right, to stolen motor vehicles and whatever we want to program that for. Right now, I could see an immediate benefit. Maybe long-term, maybe some additional cameras, mounted cameras in town that would be fed, live feed, real time, into the dispatch center, something like what Hartford has, something like what Wethersfield is trying to put together. But you're talking real big bucks, Alan, and and it's that's something that would have to be laid out over years. But I think that's where we're going. It's not without some controversy, right? The privacy and everything, but the information that HPD is garnering through their camera system in the city with facial recognition and everything else that goes with it is absolutely amazing. And I do think technology is going to play a bigger part for us down the road in terms of being successful as these restrictions continue to come down, from Hartford or from Washington. But I'd like to start maybe smaller, more doable with the portable license plate readers, and we've talked about that.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking the question is, I'm not in law enforcement. I don't know what you need and what you do on a, I know what you do on a daily basis, but it's the way to ask what the tools are that are needed to continue to keep the community feeling safe and being safe.
Well, that would be a good start right there. I know Representative Woods is working on trying to get some grant money for us on that as well. I've been in touch with her, and she's been pretty good so far. So we'll see what happens there.
And it may be too something that we can work into that American Rescue Fund money. We just don't know. We're waiting for guidance. So
that would be great.
Yeah. All right, guys and gals. If there's nothing else of the chief, we will conclude his presentation. And Chief, again, on behalf of the whole council, we thank you tremendously for everything you've done and your immediate response to our community and coming to the meetings. And you really created a laundry list of solutions that you implemented literally overnight. And it was very impressive. And we're very grateful for all that you're doing to respond to the crime in the community, specifically the property crime, and doing that safely during pandemic conditions. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. And, when you have great people, you're able to accomplish great things. And we are fortunate. We have a great police department in this town. You got great people in this agency. And, the COVID thing, case in point, real quick, I believe we were the only agency that came to work every day throughout that whole period. And they never skipped a beat. Fantastic job. So much appreciated. And I will share that praise with them. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Thank you. All right. With that, I think we will entertain a motion to adjourn. No, we are not. No, we're not. Do we have more? No. Okay, John. No.
No, we just have to go over next week's schedule.
Gotcha.
Where the big game is Tuesday. The Board of Ed's coming in Tuesday at 5:30.
Okay.
We do have in there Wednesday as an open date, which if we needed it for whatever reason, I don't see any reason that we need that. And then we have a regular budget workshop on Thursday, the 6th. So we'll have at least workshops on the 4th and the 6th, nothing on the 5th, unless you see otherwise. Lisa.
Okay. Perfect.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
But